from Livingston, New Jersey, we have with us Ida Dunayev, the Senior Director of Enterprise Architecture for Johnson & Johnson. Ida, hello there. Great to have you with us.
Hey, Jose, it's a pleasure to be here.
Very well. So I'll do a very short bio on Ida and then let her carry on with her presentation. Ida is a Senior Director of Technology at Johnson & Johnson. She leads the architecture practice at the Corporate Business Technology Group, which supports global J&J functions such as HR, finance, procurement, global services, and all other functions. Ida has many years of experience in various architecture disciplines, including technology, information, application, and enterprise architecture. She has background in application development and integration. She approaches enterprise architecture as an art and science discipline, looking for best ways to apply modern technologies to solving real business problems. Ida, it's a real privilege to have you with us. On behalf of the entire audience with us, over 2,000 participants globally, we very much look forward to your insights.
Thank you very much, Jose. It's a pleasure to be here to share with all of you our learnings and our journey through this new operating model that we recently implemented for Corporate Business Technologies Group. So what I will talk about today is a little bit of background about our technology team. I'll talk about our journey to the product-centric operating model and what role the architecture can and should play in such a model. We'll talk a little bit about our framework and how we made it happen, and I'll talk a little bit about the strategic portion of our services, because I believe that's where we bring the greatest value. So let's jump into it. So as Jose mentioned, my technology team supports all of corporate functions of Johnson & Johnson. We support 135,000 employees and their needs in HR, finance, procurement, global services space, as well as healthcare compliance, privacy, legal. It's a bunch of functions. And the challenge here is that we have to serve all these groups while maximizing the value to the business and reducing friction in delivery. We want to be as efficient as possible, and yet we want to deliver the value that these functions expect from IT. So it took us a little bit of a journey to evolve the way we work internally, as well as we partner with these businesses and within the IT organization. So in 2019, we identified a couple of problems, I would say, challenges in how we operated and how we supported all these 12 or so business functions. First of all, there was a lot of complexity and overlap in how we engaged with the business. So not always the business stakeholders would know who to reach out to in IT, who to go to if they have a new initiative or they have an existing problem. It was a bit confusing for them. Not only was it confusing for them, it was a little bit confusing for us, because there were many handoffs from the business requirements team to the delivery team, to the operational team, to the problem-solving team, so forth and so on. And roles and responsibilities were not always clear. Another side effect of that was that resources were not necessarily aligned or dedicated to the core business domains and products. So that lack of ownership could be felt throughout the entire end-to-end delivery life cycle. And naturally, it caused some issues with the intake process, which would be disconnected. Again, the business would go to one person, another person, and nobody had an overall view of what the demand pipeline is like, because people use different touch points. And this leads to difficulties prioritizing that demand. When you don't have visibility to all of it, how do you even prioritize? And the result of that was sometimes maybe missing high value opportunities or having duplicate investments in various areas. Another kind of problem was the lack of user centricity. So when individual business stakeholders ask for something, they look only on their own area in scope. And more often than not, the business process spans multiple solutions. It spans multiple environments. So the end-to-end user experience sometimes is suboptimal because the the components of the landscape are optimized just for one task and not necessarily across a sequence of tasks. And finally, our organization was not necessarily up to speed on some of the new technologies and some of the advanced techniques that requires to drive next generation of digital transformation. So the solve for that was a shift to the product orientation. So what does it mean? Primarily, it means that we form teams that includes both the business side and the IT side together. Everybody sits at the same table. And this is where those conversations start that unpack the business need and ties it to the technology, potential technology solutions and the product, technology product that we would develop to address those needs. The key role in that kind of a model is a business product owner. Now, this business product owner is responsible for the entire life cycle of a product, from the very inception of a product, what this product, now we're talking product using product language, what this product is going to deliver to the business, how is it going to come to life, how is it going to evolve, and if necessary, how it's going to retire. So the business product owner provides the business perspective on that. And this business product owner partners with the technology product owner, who is the technical lead on what technologies are needed to come together and be integrated to actually enable the business product that we have in mind. So this is a completely different mindset, and it required adopting a consistent product management approach, which is a discipline in and by itself. So we did, in fact, train the entire corporate business technology organization on product management discipline. We had a product management one-on-one training. Everybody took the training. And we also had to train our business counterparts to be with us on this journey, because if they have to take this role of business product owner, they have to know what's expected from that role. So it was quite a journey, and we're still on this journey, but I think we had some early successes with that. So what does it mean to move from project to product-centric model? Well, there are a bunch of things that are happening here. So first of all, a little bit of history. So the project-centric approach was really good in helping to increase productivity of IT teams and optimize the way we work. And the approach to that was very much focused on delivery, on a very predefined outcomes that any particular solution would deliver. It's a very deterministic approach. You create the schedule that spans a year and a half, maybe even 2 years. You decide what features are going to be in scope. You bring the team together that's assigned for this period of time. And your funding is exactly for this set of features that's agreed and you have a contract for in the very, very beginning. So it's a highly deterministic approach. The problem with the highly deterministic approach is that we're all humans, so we cannot really foresee the future very well. That's one. And the second thing is the environment around us is constantly changing. And we need to adapt to that change. And we need to provide the best experience for the users who also are very attuned to getting very intuitive and very flexible, and their requirements change over time as well. So to solve for this uncertainty, we need a more collaborative, experimental, test and learn based approach to drive this innovation, to drive this flexibility. And that leads us to the product-centric model, where there is not necessarily finite end date. The working software, even though it may have limited set of features, is considered a product, right? So we are all familiar now with beta, perpetual beta that we experienced with Google and other technology companies. It's working, it's good, so let's improve it from there. Having some sort of a vision for where this product is going still is needed. The team stays together after each release, so we don't disperse them. We keep them together for the duration for the lifetime of the product. And the funding is interesting, right? So we allocate it annually, and we use it according to the direction of this business product owner and the technical product owner to decide what features, what should be included in the next release, so that we achieve the best benefits for the business in the next iteration. Quite a bit of mindset change, and the biggest change is to remove this deterministic approach. Right now, all of a sudden, you don't know exactly what's going to be delivered when, and it requires a little bit of letting go and trusting the team and trusting the business product owner to drive this evolution. So that creates tremendous challenges for architecture, as you can imagine, right? So all of a sudden, we shift focus to this autonomous, self-directed, persistent teams who work on a bunch of products. They prioritize agile product and platform delivery. They harness innovation. They do quick iterative decision-making. They're on their own. They focus on user experience, and they have deep technical and subject matter expertise. Now, what does it mean for architecture, who wants to make sure that we actually have a holistic product portfolio that is, that has some logic to itself and is aligned to business and technology strategies as a set, as a portfolio, not just a bunch of individual elements? How do we make sure that we don't have overlapping products, since everybody is working on their little piece? How do we make sure that we make the best use of existing technologies and that we actually do bring the innovation into the organization? How do we make sure that we don't create new technical debt? Because all these teams, they might be taking some shortcuts, they might be going for some quick wins and just doing, maybe some quick fixes somewhere. And how do we understand the impact of change? If something changes in one product, how do we understand how it may propagate to the rest of our environment? So all these questions are key for architecture to address. This is why I think the role of architecture is extremely important in this product-centric model, because we are the organization that looks across individual products and across individual product teams. So how is that organized? So it's a little bit of a busy slide, but I'm going to try and walk you through it. So on the left, you have this business-centric domains where we said we want to align our delivery model to the business. So the functional domain is aligned with the business function. So we have an HR team, finance, procurement, so forth and so on. Within each one of this functional domain, there is a squad. This is a product-centric team that is focused on delivering a particular product for their customers. So each domain may have multiple squads working on several products for that particular domain. Now, in order to promote the specialty, the role-specific expertise across squads, we have this concept of a chapter where product owners, business analysts, people in a specific role come together to share best practices across squads. But the key portion of the slide here is architecture. It's a group that looks across everything. We look across domains, we look across squads, we look across chapters to make sure that the portfolio of products is actually aligned to the overall strategy. We help the functional domains develop their technology roadmaps across products. We guide technology solution architecture on key initiatives that's within the squads, that's for the products. And we also look after the cross-domain data and integration strategy. We partner very closely with the strategy and operational team, which looks after the financials of this portfolio. So we want to make sure that when we do the portfolio review, investment reviews, that those investments are actually aligned with the domain technology strategy, and that we actually invest into the products in alignment with those strategies. So, the portfolio of our services then includes both the strategic component, where we look after the set of products, as well as services for individual product, one product at a time. Solution architecture, you may call it. So on the left-hand side, in the left column here, you see our strategic intent, this business capability, landscapes, roadmaps, technology strategies. These are the services we provide on the strategic level. Moving towards the right side of the slide, discovery and innovation, product, platform, and solution guidance. This is where we step in and we help individual product teams to explore the problem, to identify what technology is even needed, to evaluate technology options, to define what solutions should look like, and then integrate everything with everything. We provide guidance on that as well. And finally, one of our services is to educate the organization on what's happening in the industry, to provide an external point of view so that we really take advantage of what innovation that happens outside of Johnson & Johnson, perhaps, and within Johnson & Johnson as well. So I would like to spend a couple of minutes now on the strategic aspects of our services. We spoke just a little bit about how we provide solution architecture services to the squads, but I think that discipline is well defined and people usually know how to do it. The strategic part is, I think, less appreciated and less understood. So I would like to spend a little bit of time on this. So our organization, Corporate Business Technology, is a technology group that supports all those corporate functions. What questions do we want to be able to answer? And then how architecture can help answer those questions. This is how we position ourselves as a value-add organization to Corporate Business Technologies Group. Our organization needs to understand how can we become trusted business partners. What is our business model? What are the business priorities? What business capabilities our business partners see as differentiating? Where do they want to invest? And in order to enable those business strategies, what technologies should we invest in? So what should be our technology roadmap, multi-year technology roadmap? So what are the macro trends in industry and technologies? Which technologies are important and relevant to enable those differentiating capabilities that the business has in mind? And then finally, as we talked about product-centric approach to our delivery, what is our portfolio composition, product portfolio composition? Is it really aligned to everything we said we want to do? Are we investing the money and talent in the right place? Do we have opportunities for perhaps cost optimization? Do we have too many products perhaps that nobody's using? So the framework that we adopted to enable us answer those questions is actually based on a business capability model. And I think one of the presentations earlier this morning was dedicated to that concept. So on the top, you see that same questions that we just discussed in a previous slide: business strategy to technology strategies to product and platforms portfolio. And what underpins it, what ties it all together is the business capability model, and then the product catalog and the associated roadmaps, and finally, technology platforms and capabilities. So let's dive into a business capability model. And this is truly a cornerstone of connecting business and IT. And it's a proven method. We didn't invent it, but it's a proven method that really was implemented successfully here. I'm proud that we got quite a bit of traction with our business counterparts in applying this model and using it to generate the technology and business roadmaps. So it does connect the business strategies to business and IT portfolio planning, to product and domain roadmaps, to operational views and rationalization opportunities and white space opportunities, all of those things. Because we can express the business strategies by identifying which capabilities need to be developed. Then we assess which of those capabilities are of priority to the business. So the maturity assessment is important here to kind of color this framework in the priorities color, which ones are more important, which ones are less important for the business. And then we can look at the business portfolio through that lens and see what the business is planning to do to advance those capabilities. And then what does it mean to technology landscape? If the business highlights a certain area, say total rewards, this is how we compensate and engage our employees. If the business says this is the prime priority for us, this is the primary area for us, then we can look at the portfolio of products, technologies, solutions that we have today that support that area and see, do we have overlaps today? Do we have maybe too many products that are not connected to one another? Do we have antiquated products? Are there rationalization opportunities? Or maybe there is a white space opportunity. Maybe we have some products, but none of them are good enough. And maybe we should go and search for a better one and develop a better one to meet these business needs that are apparently not being met today. So we apply this approach to develop the domain technology roadmaps, right? So that we inform where the technology group should invest and why and how. We adopted this 5-step process that starts with the business capability model. So we develop the business capability model, or we adopt the one that business have if they have it. If they don't have it, we help them develop one or adopt an industry standard one for each one of those corporate functions that we just looked at. And then we map our existing products against that model. That's step number 2. And we produce as-is product landscapes. The color coding here reflects the time disposition of these products. Tolerate, invest, migrate, eliminate. Like, what is the status? How well are they fitting what these products are supposed to do? And what is their technology maturity level? Are they dependent on outdated platforms and need to be refreshed or needs to be eliminated? So that's the depiction of our as-is environment. And then we do this capability maturity assessment with the business, and we ask them, well, which of these areas are most important to you, right? And I used this total rewards example before, the way we compensate our employees, the way we plan compensation numbers and things like that, right? And the business, what the darker color coding indicates here, that, yeah, it's very important for the business. They want to become perhaps industry leaders in this particular capability. So what do we need to do to help them get there, right? So we now depict the to-be product landscape. What should the environment look like if we want to really advance this particular capability for the business? So we paint the to-be product landscape. And in order to get there, now we have to devise a set of initiatives, a set of activities. And some of this may be not even technology driven. Maybe some business process needs to change, maybe some organization needs to change, but we don't really impact those areas. But we look at this from the technology perspective, and I say, what initiatives on the technology front do we need to activate in order to get from where we are today, as is step 2, to step 4, to where we want to be, in alignment with what business really wants to achieve, with alignment and this heat map vision. So last year, we were successful at implementing all these 5 steps for most of our functions. And we are planning to refresh these views this year so that this information always becomes available and becomes up to date. And the important piece here is that now we are starting to bring these technology roadmaps to the investment conversations in the portfolio reviews. This is when really it becomes impactful, when this deliverables, these artifacts, even though they're being used by the business as a background for many conversations, like where the money goes, what applications we have, how many and why, and so forth and so on. But now it becomes the basis of actually discussing the investments and why certain investments need to be made in certain areas, and looping it back to where the business needs are and the business capability heat map. So now we're starting to get traction with actually making decisions based on this work. So another supporting asset for us, which is also a very important asset that we architecture group helps to curate, is the product catalog. So you would think, well, what's a big deal about the product catalog? You just list all the products. It turns out that there is a lot of interpretation of what constitutes a product, and somebody who sits outside of the product teams need to help with the definition, so that we have a consistent degree of granularity and meaning across all areas, right? So if one team calls a website a product, then let's make sure that that website has enough substance behind it, and it has a roadmap, and it has a vision, and it has a product owner, so that it qualifies as a standalone product, rather than being just a web page and maybe potentially a component of another product. So this turned out not to be a trivial task, and required a lot of conversations with the domain leads and the product teams. But I'm proud to say that we achieved this consistent definition, and we are driving now this consistent representation of this product information across various IT repositories, right? So we capture the product information in CMDB, in our ITSM tool. We now capture it in our portfolio tools, the investment portfolio tools, landscape views, and roadmaps, as you saw in the previous slide. So it's very important to get this data right, because the entire delivery model is dependent on it. And similarly to business capabilities, the product catalog is a linchpin connecting now the business strategies, portfolio planning, and all those things into the actual implementation. This is where all the strategies and all this good stuff gets actually realized through the products. So, so what are some of the takeaways? Like, what are the lessons learned, and what can we offer as best practices to other teams? Well, the services that we provide, how do we make sure that they create value for stakeholders? It is important to tailor the service offerings to the stakeholder needs. For example, our leadership team, our corporate business technology leadership team, the leaders who lead the development and delivery for each one of those domains, they're our stakeholders. So the IT leaders usually want to see the strategic directions and roadmaps. They say, what's around the corner for HR domain? What's around the corner for finance? How will this environment look like in 1 year, 1.5 years from now? So they're our stakeholders. So we help them by articulating and crafting those roadmaps together with the business and address their needs that way. Now, when we shift focus to product owners and delivery teams, well, they're delivering a discrete product, a discrete solution, so they need guidance on the solution architecture. They need help understanding what solutions, what products, what platforms exist in the marketplace, where the industry is going. Should they buy? Should they build? If they buy, how they integrate everything to everything. If they build, what should be the main components of that solution? So the product owners and delivery teams really benefit from solution architecture services. So what we try to do here with our group is we try to balance the two services and provide both. And sometimes it's not an easy balance to achieve because everybody will have different priorities and will have different needs. But that's the catalog of services includes both. Now, we talked a little bit about the role of architecture in a product-oriented flow of work. So what is the takeaway here? Well, as we discussed, if the product teams are left to themselves, they will be very, very successful and very efficient in producing a bunch of products. Now, the role of architecture is to make sure that that bunch of products actually is a self-contained thing, and it has its own internal logic for why these products exist and how they're connected to one another. So a coherent set of products, a coherent set of portfolio is of importance, and this is the value of architecture, is to look at products across different boundaries. And making sure that each individual product and its roadmap and where it goes is actually aligned with the overall technology strategy. And why is that important? It's important because the products don't really exist in and by itself. A product has to talk to other products. It has to be part of a business process that they support. There is no one product that really supports end-to-end process for everyone and everything. So it's still part, each product is part of an ecosystem. And what architecture does, it provides the context and the line of sight across this entire ecosystem and guides each individual product evolution in such a way that the portfolio is coherent. All right, so the next thing is, okay, so we talked about all these things: business strategies, IT strategies, product portfolio, investment portfolios. So the value add of architecture is to be able to connect all these multiple perspectives and to provide that line of sight across all these dimensions. And the way we did it was through a business capability centric approach to developing strategies for connecting business and IT. Again, a proven approach, not a brand new thing, but works really, really well if we engage the business and make them the stewards of these models, right? So it's not our model, it's their model. We're just there to help them articulate and capture it, but it's for them, and it's their product, and they connect it to their outcomes that they want to achieve. So that's that partnership with the business on joint ownership of the capability model itself is important. So how can we earn trust and avoid an ivory tower reputation? And architecture is always perceived as someone who is sitting in the corner and draws very pretty diagrams that nobody really needs or wants. Well, credibility and trust is earned by solving real problems. So our architects are not shy of jumping into the solution with solution teams, with product teams, and help them solve real problems. And that way they gain respect, credibility, and trust. On the more strategic front, we said IT leaders, they want the strategies, they want the roadmaps, they want all this stuff. So we establish shared goals and objectives with them. So if a domain lead wants a roadmap for their specific domain, we say, okay, so let's make it a joint goal. So it's not the architecture doing that, but we're doing it together. And in order to get there, we're gonna try and implement those 5 steps that we just talked about. And now the owner is on that domain lead to actually make sure that their teams actually collaborate and work with us to develop those artifacts that inform the strategy, right? All of a sudden, it's not the architecture problem anymore. It's a joint problem, and it's a joint goal and joint objectives. And now all of a sudden we look at common metrics, and now we monitor progress together. We ask, where are we from these 5 steps? Which domain is where? Who completed step 2? Who completed step 3? And again, it's not just the architecture goal. We don't do it for architecture. We do it together, right? So this upfront agreement and a contract, if you will, on the goals and objectives of not only what will be achieved, but how it will be achieved, goes a long way to get an engagement from the teams to actually produce those deliverables. Now, because our services portfolio is so broad and there are so many things that we can do, it's very important to have explicit prioritization framework. So regular backlog reviews, regular priority reviews with the key stakeholders are key to explicitly prioritize our work. So what we do, so our architects are aligned by domain. So we have an architect who supports, let's say, HR and finance, and another architect supports, HR and payroll, another architect supports finance, and another one supports procurement, so forth, so on. So that architect establishes a regular cadence of meeting with the head of HR domain, and they review the backlog of this HR architect, and they say, what are the top 3 priorities for that architect on a quarterly basis to focus on? We try to keep it to top 3. It doesn't always happen that way, but there is an explicit review. And the main stakeholder, the domain lead, they know at all times what the architect is working on because they agreed on it, and they explicitly define those priorities. So another thing is to be able to articulate the scope of our services so we can manage expectations and be realistic about what we can and cannot deliver. For example, when we say we're going to provide solution architecture services, because we have so many products, it's unrealistic to expect that we're going to play in each and every product delivery cycle, right? So we say, well, because we are a small team, we're going to maybe participate in top 3 or top 5 or top several key initiatives, key products for the organization. And how do we define those top 3 or top 5? Well, through those backlog reviews, if you will, through the explicit prioritization with the stakeholders. We define what initiatives are most important. We make sure there is an architect overseeing or helping to design that solution. And then finally, to stay relevant, to stay as thought leaders in the organization and to have that credibility, we have to keep up to speed with industry trends, participating and contributing to conferences such as this one. We bring knowledge back to the organization and, continuing to earn a reputation of a technology expert. So this concludes this presentation. I thank you very much for listening. Hope you found it helpful, and I guess I'll invite Jose back to run the Q&A session.
Fantastic presentation, Ida. What a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much for the breadth and the depth that you have shared with us. Incredible process. I hope that everyone is paying close attention to all the amazing insights that you have shared with us today. Based on the questions that we have received, they are. So I'll just pick a few here to get us started. So the first one comes from Jagadish Manukonda, and Jagadish asks, how did you handle or accommodate and prioritize what he calls technology debt-driven changes that may be no value to realize, maybe more foundational things, versus business capability-driven things that really have value creation associated with them? How do you strike the balance between maybe the more strategic and intangible and the very tactical value creation things?
No, this is a wonderful question, and it's not either or, right? It's and. We have to do both. So how do we do both? So first, it's increasing visibility of that technical debt. First, make it visible. We make it known. And how to make it known? Well, we use the time framework, tolerate, invest, migrate, eliminate assignments for each product. We define what category, what life cycle category this particular product falls into. And then we look at our portfolio and look at the composition of the portfolio, and we say, okay, it looks like, I don't know, I'm going to make this up, by the way, so these are not true numbers, but maybe we say, well, it looks like 30% of our portfolio perhaps in the retire state. It means we are carrying this burden. These are the applications that we said we want to retire, or that maybe they're dependent on outdated technologies or what have you. So how much does it cost us to carry that tail and make it visible, make it real, and bring it in front of the investment communities and say, so it cost us this much. You will have to refresh this. You'll have to upgrade these technologies. We have to run on the current versions. It's going to cost you this much. So we have to make a decision. Do we keep running those things and keep investing, or do we retire some of them, invest to retire, and move into another product, right? So the first thing I would step, knowing what the technical debt is, that's by itself is not a trivial question to answer. So we work with our technology services part. So we have a technology infrastructure organization who has a closer sight into dependency of what product depends on what platforms. Is it a database? Is it an operating system that's out of date, or what have you? They create reports and they tell us, this proportion of your products depends on these outdated technologies. Then we make it visible to our organization and we say, well, it looks like this set of products needs to be either upgraded or retired. And then it's a decision where to invest. And it's there is no perfect answer. But the decision has to be an informed decision with all this data at the table. So what architecture does, we make it visible, we make it tangible, and we inform the decisions, right? And we may have an opinion. We may say, look, this entire portion of a landscape, portion of a portfolio really is not on par. We should really get rid of it and invest. But then it's the decision of when and how to put this on a roadmap and make it part of the strategy.
Excellent. Pamela Bishop has been asking a number of good questions. I'm going to pick one from her right now.
Sure.
And Pamela asks, product managers can view business architecture as a redundant function that does similar things that, like value streams, roadmaps, and things that they may be doing within that business or function already. So the question is, what approach do you take to foster engagement between business architecture with your product organization?
Yeah, great question. So I would say across our 12 or so business functions, the degree to which business architecture exists in some or doesn't exist in others varies, right? So we don't really have a uniform way to say we have business architecture everywhere and it's at maturity level X, right? So depending on the function, from function to function, we may have a different degree of maturity, and even organizationally, it might look differently, right? In one function, for example, we may have an official business architecture group sitting within the business. And if that's the case, we are more than happy to partner with them and say, okay, show us your business capability model. We are more than happy to accept yours. We don't want ours. We don't want to create new one if you already have one. So let's work together. Let's see if it makes sense. Maybe we tweak it a little. Maybe we just adopt it. So in the areas where this business architecture exists, we are more than happy to partner with them and make them our extended arm, if you will. In some areas, some of our functions are not that advanced and they have no business architecture to speak of, and they not necessarily have a function or resources to do that. So we partner with them, then we show our approach, we show our framework, and we say, look, this other function actually did adopt this method and they have the business architecture, and look, they're successful. So we use some of this example as best practice example to motivate the others who may not have it to go the same route. But it's a collaborative approach, right? So if somebody does not have it, we help them create it. If somebody has it, we are not proud. We are more than happy to take what they have, partner with them, and advance that way, right? So I wouldn't say it's an overlap or redundant, because we would not create something that conflicts or redundant with something that exists. We embrace it, and we are more than happy actually when that exists, right? Because our group is very, very small, and we don't really have a dedicated business architect, a dedicated application architect. We don't have those dedicated roles. So we have one architect who covers, say, an entire HR and payroll domain, top to bottom, you name it, business, technology, information, architecture, solution architecture. And then if HR happens to have a business architecture, we're more than happy to take what they've got.
No, I appreciate that answer, Ida, because it's contextual, it's practical, it's insightful. A lot of times people get into this idealized notions on how things should operate, right? And what you're providing here is a real world perspective that, especially in very large businesses, that you have to take the context into account. And in some areas, you're going to be very hands-on. Other areas, you're going to be more of a partner and support whatever they're doing. That's really great insight. Following up, one more question from Pamela. Did you have specialized business architecture roles, or did you make a decision to train your existing technology architects in business architecture?
No, great question. So our architects on our team, they wear many hats, right? So the short answer is no, we don't have dedicated business architects. But the other side of the question is no, we don't have technology architects either, right? So this, who we call domain architects, they wear these multiple hats, as we just discussed. And depending on where their corresponding domain is, they may need to do a little bit of business architecture, and they may require a little bit of training, but most of them have the basics. Most of them come from either enterprise architecture background or solution architecture background, but they understand the notion of of these different layers of architecture, and they're pretty fluent in each one of these architecture domains, if you will. So no, we don't have that separation. And yes, they wear multiple hats, and they have to be flexible in what particular task they're working on at any given moment. But I think this 5-step framework that we put forward, it elevates the importance of business architecture, right? So we didn't even use this term a lot, right? We say business capabilities. Look, we model your business. We help you articulate what your business strategy is in terms of these capabilities that you want to invest into. So we kind of indirectly promoted the notion of business architecture. We never actually even necessarily used the term, but it's there. It's embedded in the model. And Jose, I just wanted to comment on what you just said about being flexible with the business partners. That's a great observation, because last year we did put this 5-step model forward. We said everybody goes through these 5 steps, and let's just do it. And the learning from that was that, well, we cannot really force everybody to march at the same pace with those 5 steps, right? So we were able to achieve the end of 5 steps with some functions, and some functions were just starting to embrace the capability model itself. They just started drawing those diagrams. They just started think about their businesses in those ways. And they're still a little bit, behind on this journey. But and the learning this year is, we have to be flexible. We have to be considerate of where people are and adapt.
Very, very good. One final question here. We have time to wrap up with one from Ribamar Matias, who leads enterprise technology architecture in Brazil. So another global perspective here. And his question is, how do you do? I mean, Johnson & Johnson, of course, a global company, operates in Brazil, as a matter of fact. And the question becomes, how do you deal with high demand technology costs that there exist? And then the constraints of budgets, right, that you have. And what do you think is the best approach for an investment technology strategy, especially in times of uncertainty and rapid change that we're undergoing right now. Do you have any tips on approaching investments in technology, you know, with constraints, budget constraints, and the high costs of technology implementation?
Yeah, it's a great question. We are well aware of the regional implications on the cost of what it costs in the regions to roll out some global programs. So we take it a little bit kind of how should I say it, a flexible approach to that, right? So on certain platforms where we decided we're going to have a global solution for all of Johnson & Johnson, that just goes without saying. Our HR platform is global, Workday is being rolled out everywhere, and yes, the regions have to somehow I guess live with that, and we try. I think the central group tries to help the regions to actually implement the global platform, because the benefits globally outweigh any kind of complexities or cost implications in the region. So that's being sold. That investment is being sold on a global level, right? For big global platforms. For some of the smaller solutions, I think it's important to be conscious of the regional budget constraints and regional investment strategies. So we have to wait and see what makes sense, right? So we do have regional teams who have regional products, who have regional solutions, and there is a portfolio of those, right? And we need to make sure that the benefits of having a local solution outweighs the benefit of having something centralized. So how to go about it? Well, cost versus benefits analysis, I guess those usual techniques that help, and also looking at, again, a product portfolio. Do we have already products in our portfolio that can do 90% or 80% of what you guys need in the region? If we don't have it, or tax applications in Brazil, they're gonna, I think, we're gonna stay forever. And it's a pretty diverse portfolio, right? Because the requirements are so unique, there is no global solution potentially for that, right? Not yet, anyways. So if the benefits are there, if the needs are there, then it will be a regional solution funded accordingly, right? If we have something global and it's of benefit to the whole organization, then we may need to roll out something global. So there is no direct answer. Again, I think the key is visibility and cost and benefit analysis and understanding the entire landscape.
Ida, what a terrific presentation, great insights. So privileged to have you with us, with over 2,000 global participants learning from you, an expert in the field. It's been a real honor to have you. So thank you for sharing your insights today.
My pleasure, Jose. Happy to be here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Ida Dunayev from Johnson & Johnson. Incredible insights. Go back, look at the presentation, and immerse yourself into a very structured approach to enterprise architecture and successful enterprise architecture. So thank you for sharing that, Aidan, and on behalf of the organization. And we are going to wrap up today's day one of Enterprise Architecture Live with a different type of session. We are going to welcome at the top of the hour business transformation leader from UNICEF. And the Anu Seaman is going to talk to us about enterprise architecture and the power of storytelling. This is a bit of a unique topic on how can we become better communicators about the very complex items that we deal with and communicate them simply to others, and communicate with persuasion, communicate towards engagement with the audience that we have. So enterprise architecture and the power of storytelling. Anu Seaman, business transformation leader at UNICEF, will guide us through that at the top of the hour. I'll see you back soon.